fans of ketchup are about to learn something that ruins the squeeze bottle forever. You pour it over your fries without thinking. That red bottle that's been on every kitchen table you've ever sat at, in every diner booth, in every takeout bag you've ever carried home. Some of the most trusted bottles in America are less than 8% tomato. The rest is watered-down sugar syrup held together with the same kind of thickener used to make wallpaper paste stick to a wall. They water it down on purpose. Tomato is the single most expensive thing in the bottle. 8 brands investigated, and only 2 are actually real tomato. And I'll show you a 10-second test with a white plate that tells you exactly which is which. So let's start with the worst offenders and work our way to the ones that are quietly lying to your face. Number 8. Annie's Organic Ketchup. You know Annie's, the little rabbit on the box, the macaroni and cheese marketed to parents who read labels, the brand that sits in the natural section at Target and Kroger and lets you feel like the responsible one in the aisle. Annie's built an entire identity on being the trustworthy organic choice, the one you reach for when you've decided the regular stuff isn't good enough for your kids. And here's the thing about Annie's ketchup. On paper, it's genuinely one of the cleaner conventional options. Organic tomato concentrate, organic cane sugar, vinegar, salt, and no high fructose corn syrup. So why is it on this list at all? Because Annie's is owned by General Mills. The cuddly indie rabbit is a wholly owned subsidiary of one of the largest food corporations on the planet. And that matters more than you think. The small organic branding is doing heavy lifting that the ingredient list doesn't fully earn. You're paying a premium, often $4 to $5 for a bottle that costs less than $1 in store brand form, for a feeling of artisanal care that is in reality a marketing layer applied by a multinational. But here's what really earns Annie's its spot: the sugar. It still leads with organic cane sugar high in the ingredient order, around 3 to 4 grams per tablespoon, which is essentially the same sugar load as the conventional brands it's positioned against. Organic sugar is still sugar. Your bloodstream cannot read the word organic. How does the world's most wholesome-looking rabbit deliver a product nutritionally identical to the cheap stuff? The answer is that the halo is the product. You're buying the rabbit, not the recipe. Compare it to a plain store-brand organic ketchup with the same 4 ingredients at 1/3 of the price, and the only real difference you've paid for is the cartoon and the word Annie's. It's not a scam. It's just not the upgrade the packaging promises. Sold at every Target and most Krogers in the country, right at eye level in the organic set where it's designed to catch exactly the shopper who's trying hardest to do the right thing. Number 7. Great Value Organic. Walmart's Great Value Organic Ketchup is sitting on the shelf at every Walmart in America right now, and is the perfect example of how the word organic gets used to quietly raise your expectations. Great Value is the house brand, the cheapest of the cheap, the one budget families reach for. Because the regular Great Value bottle costs under $1, the organic version costs more, and it's sold to the shopper who wants Walmart prices but a cleaner conscience. Flip the bottle and you'll read organic tomato concentrate, organic sugar, organic distilled vinegar, salt, organic onion powder, organic spices, genuinely clean, no corn syrup. So far, so good. Here's the do-it-yourself test you can run tonight, and I want you to actually do it. Take whatever ketchup is in your fridge and squeeze a tablespoon onto a white plate. Tilt the plate. Watch how fast a thin ring of pinkish water separates out from the red paste. That weeping ring is the water content. The cheaper and more diluted the ketchup, the faster and wider that ring spreads. Real tomato-dense ketchup barely weeps at all because the tomato solids hold the water in. Great Value Organic weeps more than you'd hope, because even the organic version is built to hit that minimum tomato threshold and stretch it with water. But here's what they don't tell you about the processing behind this exact product. It's flagged for moderate processing concerns while the non-organic version scores lower on processing. Why would the organic version be flagged as more processed? Because organic tells you how the tomatoes were farmed. No synthetic pesticides. But it tells you nothing about how much the product was concentrated, diluted, and reassembled in a factory. You assumed organic meant whole and simple. It means neither. Why would Walmart sell you that assumption? Because it's cheaper to print organic than to actually pack more tomato into the bottle. It's a real organic product that's still a concentrate and water formula wearing a health halo. Compare it to making your own, which I'll show you later, and the gap in actual tomato is enormous. Number 6. Hunt's. Hunt's is the #2 ketchup in America, the perennial runner-up to Heinz, and you'll find it at Walmart, Kroger, Publix, and basically every grocery store in the country for around $2 a bottle. Hunt's leans hard on its identity as the tomato company. They make diced tomatoes, whole tomatoes, paste, sauce, the whole canned tomato aisle. So the implication is that the people who know tomatoes best are making your ketchup, and to their credit, Hunt's did something genuinely good back in 2009. They pulled high fructose corn syrup out of the recipe in response to consumer backlash, reformulating to tomatoes, sugar, vinegar, salt, and seasonings. That's a real win, and it's why Hunt's isn't lower on this list. So why is it here at all? Because Hunt's ketchup is built on tomato concentrate, not whole tomatoes. And that distinction is the entire game. Concentrate is tomato paste that's been cooked down at high heat, stripped of water, shipped as a thick industrial slurry, and then reconstituted back into ketchup by adding water and sugar at the bottling plant. Think about what that means. The tomato in your Hunt's was cooked twice. Once to make the paste, blasting it to around 200 degrees in a process that drives off the bright, fresh tomato flavor and a chunk of the nutrients. And then again when it's blended and pasteurized into ketchup. You're eating tomatoes that have been to the surface of a frying pan and back twice before they ever reached you. But here's the really twisted part. The reason concentrate exists isn't flavor, it's freight. A tanker of fresh tomatoes is mostly water, and water is expensive to ship. So the industry boils the water off in California, ships the dense paste cheaply across the country, and squirts the water back in wherever it's convenient. You are quite literally paying to have water removed from a tomato and then added back to a tomato. Does that make a better ketchup? No. It makes a cheaper supply chain, and there's a number that exposes the whole thing. A fresh tomato is about 95% water and 5% solids. To make the paste that becomes your ketchup, processors evaporate that juice down to roughly 28% solids. That figure is the industry's measure of how concentrated the slurry is. It takes well over 5 pounds of raw tomatoes to make a single pound of paste at that density. So the tomato in Hunt's started as fresh tomatoes, got cooked into a super dense industrial concentrate, stored in giant aseptic drums for up to 2 years, and then got watered back down at the bottling line. The tomato you're tasting may have been sitting in a warehouse drum longer than the milk in your fridge has existed. Compare a tablespoon of Hunt's to a spoonful of actual simmered fresh tomato, and the fresh one tastes alive. The Hunt's taste like a memory of tomato reconstituted from a tanker. $2 at Publix buys you that reconstitution, and it's still one of the better mainstream options, which tells you how low the bar sits. Number 5. Del Monte. Del Monte is the heritage name, the brand your grandmother trusted. The green and red label that's been in American pantries for over a century. Sold at Kroger, Safeway, and Walmart for $1 or $2. Del Monte does plenty of things competently across its canned empire. But its ketchup is where the heritage halo runs out of road. Because while Hunt's read the room in 2009 and dropped high fructose corn syrup, Del Monte did not. Flip the standard bottle and the ingredient list still reads tomato concentrate, high fructose corn syrup, vinegar, and then more corn syrup plus added sugar on top of that. Read that order again because the order is the whole story. Ingredients on a U.S. label are listed by weight, most to least. When you see tomato concentrate, then high fructose corn syrup, then corn syrup, you're looking at a product where sweetener split across 2 different syrups, so neither one has to appear as the single largest ingredient, is doing an enormous amount of the work. That 2 syrup split is a labeling trick. By using both high fructose corn syrup and regular corn syrup, a manufacturer can keep each individual sweetener lower in the ingredient ranking than the tomato, even when the combined sugar is massive. It looks better on the label than it is in the bottle. Why would they split it like that? Because a label that reads tomato concentrate, sugar looks honest, and that's the one thing this recipe can't afford to look. Here's your shareable gut punch. A tablespoon of this ketchup carries about the same sugar concentration as a tablespoon of many soft drinks. And you don't sip ketchup by the tablespoon. You drown a plate of fries in it, and consider what high fructose corn syrup actually is. Because the name is doing a lot of work to sound scientific and harmless. It's cornstarch broken down into glucose, then partially converted to fructose by enzymes in a refinery tuned to whatever sweetness ratio the manufacturer wants. The same engineered sweetener that fills the soda aisle. Roughly 92% of U.S. corn is genetically modified, so unless a bottle says otherwise, that's the corn your sweetener came from. The cynical part is who this brand sells to. The cheap heritage label aimed at families counting every dollar gets the version with double corn syrup, because the customers least able to shop around are the ones least likely to flip the bottle and read it. The grandmother's brand that earned trust over a century now spends that trust on the cheapest sweetener system available. A cleaner ketchup costs maybe 50 cents more per bottle. Del Monte decided your 50 cents was worth more than your blood sugar. If what you've heard so far is making you rethink what's actually in your cart, the reconstituted concentrate, the double syrup labeling trick, the organic halo that means nothing about processing, then you already understand why Consumer Alert exists. Every share puts this in front of another family standing in the ketchup aisle who deserves to know what the label is actually saying before they buy it. So hit the like button, send this to the one person you know who reads ingredient lists, and let's keep going, because the next 3 brands are where it stops being careless and starts being deliberate. Number 4, 365 by Whole Foods. Now we get to the brand that's supposed to be above all this. 365 is Whole Foods' house label, sold under the banner of the grocery store that built its entire reputation on banning junk ingredients. Whole Foods famously refuses to stock products containing high fructose corn syrup at all. So the 365 organic ketchup arrives wrapped in the strongest health halo in American retail. Organic, no corn syrup sold inside the temple of clean eating, owned now by Amazon. Organic cane sugar instead of high fructose corn syrup. Organic tomatoes, a short ingredient list. By the standards of this list, it's legitimately one of the more defensible bottles. So why does it land at number 4? Because of what the halo lets them charge, and lets you stop checking. Here's a rhetorical question worth sitting with. If a product is organic and sold at Whole Foods, you assume it must be low in sugar, right? Wrong. 364 organic ketchup still carries roughly 3 to 4 grams of added sugar per tablespoon. Functionally the same sugar load as the Del Monte you just heard me tear apart. The corn syrup is gone, which is real and good, but the sugar is not, and the store's reputation does the work of making you forget to look. You walked into the one store you trusted not to need label reading, and that's exactly where label reading matters most, because the prices are highest and the halo is brightest. But here's what they don't tell you. Organic cane sugar and conventional sugar are metabolically identical. There's no version of sucrose that your liver processes more gently because a tomato, 2 ingredients up the list, was grown without pesticides. Compare 365 to a budget organic store brand with the same 4 ingredients, and you'll often find near identical sugar and tomato content at less than half the price. You're paying the Whole Foods premium for a ketchup that's good, but not $3 better than the competition good. The lesson of number 4 isn't that 365 is poison. It's that the most trusted name in the aisle is the one most likely to make you stop reading. And the moment you stop reading is the moment the bottle wins. Number 3. Heinz. Heinz. The big one. The bottle's so dominant that for most Americans, the word ketchup and the word Heinz are the same word. It's at every retailer that exists. Walmart, Target, Kroger, Costco, your local gas station, and it commands roughly 2/3 of the entire U.S. ketchup market. The slogan stamped on the label is grown, not made, with old advertising that insisted no one grows ketchup like Heinz. Hold that slogan in your head, because it's about to collide with the ingredient list at full speed. Flip a standard U.S. Heinz bottle. Tomato concentrate, distilled vinegar, high fructose corn syrup, salt, spice, onion powder, natural flavoring. There it is, the double syrup system. The same high fructose corn syrup plus corn syrup split we saw on the cheap Heritage brand, sitting inside America's most beloved premium-feeling label. Grown, not made is printed on a product whose 2 largest non-tomato ingredients are manufactured in a corn refinery. The tomato is grown. The thing that makes up most of the rest of the bottle is unambiguously made. But here's the part that should make you genuinely angry, and it's the cleanest US versus EU comparison on this entire list. The exact same Heinz, made by the same company under the same brand, is sold in the United Kingdom with this ingredient list. Tomatoes, spirit vinegar, sugar, salt, and spice and herb extracts. No high fructose corn syrup. No corn syrup. and the UK version actually has a higher tomato content. British food labeling shows it packing significantly more tomato per bottle than the American one, so the company knows exactly how to make a cleaner, more tomato-rich ketchup. They do it every single day. They just don't do it for you, because American corn subsidies made high fructose corn syrup cheaper than sugar in the late 1970s, and Heinz, like nearly every U.S. manufacturer, switched. Why does Britain get tomatoes and sugar while you get concentrate in 2 syrups? Because corn is cheaper here, and the regulators never required otherwise. Here's the forward tease. Heinz also sells Simply Heinz, a cane sugar version with no corn syrup, right here in the US. It's essentially the British recipe, and that one's worth knowing about for the good list. They make the real thing. They charge you extra for it and hide it behind the regular red bottle. That's not an accident. That's a business model. Number 2, Whataburger. This one surprises people because Whataburger ketchup has a cult. If you grew up anywhere in Texas or the South, that fancy bottle with the orange W is nostalgia in liquid form. Fans buy it by the case at H-E-B and Walmart. They gift it. They swear it's better than everything else on this list. It carries the halo of a beloved regional restaurant brand, the implication being that a place famous for its food wouldn't put its name on something cheap. The bottle even looks upscale, so surely the cult is onto something the rest of us missed. Here's what really earns Whataburger its number 2 spot. It's one of the worst on this entire list by the numbers, and the nostalgia is doing all the hiding. The ingredient list includes high fructose corn syrup, and the sodium is among the highest of any ketchup you can buy, clocking in around 200 milligrams per single tablespoon, noticeably above the already high industry norm. So, you've got the cheap corn syrup sweetener system and a salt load that turns a condiment into a sodium delivery device wrapped in a premium-feeling restaurant bottle that costs more than the cleaner options. But here's the really twisted part. The cult is the camouflage, because it tastes like a happy memory, like being a kid in the booth with the orange table tents. Your brain grades it on emotion, not ingredients, and the brand never has to compete on what's actually in the bottle. Why would a beloved brand sell a high-syrup, high-sodium ketchup at a premium? Because love doesn't read labels. The affection you feel does the marketing for free. Here's your shareable comparison. A couple of tablespoons of this on your fries delivers a chunk of an entire day's recommended sodium ceiling before you've even salted the fries themselves. Set the nostalgia down for 1 second and read it cold, and Whataburger ketchup is a premium-priced bottle of the cheapest formula on the list. Corn syrup and a salt lick, selling almost entirely on a feeling. The feeling is real. The ketchup is not better, it's just remembered better. Number 1. Generic food service and fancy restaurant ketchup. And the worst offender, the one that earns the number 1 spot, is the ketchup you don't even choose. The no-name food service ketchup in the squeeze bottle on the diner table, in the packets in your takeout bag, refilled from a giant unlabeled jug in the back of 1,000 restaurants. You never read its label because there isn't one in front of you. That's precisely why it's number 1. It's the only ketchup on this list engineered specifically so you can never check it. Here's the specific red flag, and it's the most irredeemable on the list. Food service and bottom-tier generic ketchup is the category where manufacturers push hardest against the legal floor, the 7 to 12% tomato solids minimum. Because nobody at the table is reading a label and the buyer is a restaurant chasing the lowest per gallon price. To hit that floor and still look and pour like ketchup, the cheapest formulations lean on the maximum sweetener load, water, and starch-based thickeners and gums to fake the body that real tomato solids would normally provide. The thickener is the tell. When a ketchup doesn't have enough actual tomato to hold itself together, you add gum to make watery, sweet liquid behave like ketchup. You are eating engineered viscosity. But here's the really twisted part, and it's the line I want you to remember every time you grab a packet. The same family of starch and gum thickeners used to give bargain ketchup its fake body is used to thicken industrial products like wallpaper paste. The chemistry of making a thin, watery liquid hold its shape is the same problem whether you're hanging wallpaper or faking a tomato. Real ketchup gets its thickness from pectin released by actual concentrated tomatoes under pressure. Bargain ketchup gets it from a powder. Here's the mechanism, because it's genuinely clever and genuinely cynical. In real ketchup, tomatoes release pectin, a natural gelling fiber, when they're homogenized under high pressure. and that pectin grabs the water and holds the whole thing together as a glossy, stable paste. No tomatoes, no pectin, no body. So when you've watered down the tomato to the legal floor to save money, you've also thrown away the very thing that makes ketchup thick. The fix is to dump in the starch or gum that mimics what the tomato used to do for free. The result looks identical in the squeeze bottle. It pours the same, it clings to a fry the same, and it's structurally a completely different product wearing the costume of the real one. And because there's no bottle in your hand at the diner, there's no ingredient list, no sugar count, no sodium number, nothing. Why is this number one when it's not even a brand? Because every other product on this list at least lets you read it and walk away. This one is built on the assumption that you never can. It's the purest version of the entire scam. Maximum sweetener, minimum tomato, faked texture, and zero accountability squeezed onto your fries before you ever had a chance to say no. If the whole condiment aisle suddenly feels like a minefield, I understand. But here's the good news. Real ketchup is the easiest clean swap in your entire kitchen. Flip the bottle. If the first ingredient is tomatoes or tomato concentrate, and the rest is vinegar, a single sweetener, salt, and spices with no corn syrup and no gums, it's real. If you see 2 syrups or a thickener, put it back. Now let me tell you about the options actually worth buying. Make your own. Before any brand, know this. Ketchup is almost insultingly easy to make, and doing it once shows you exactly how little real tomato the bottles contain. A can of quality tomato paste, a splash of vinegar, a spoon of sugar or honey, salt, a pinch of onion and garlic powder, simmered for 10 minutes. That's it. That's the entire historical recipe. A can of paste costs about $1 and makes more than a full bottle with a tomato content that obliterates anything on the shelf. Because you're not shipping water across the country and squirting it back in. You control the sugar, you control the salt, and you'll never again wonder what natural flavoring is hiding. It keeps a couple of weeks in the fridge. Make it once just to taste the difference. It ruins the squeeze bottle for you in the best way. Primal Kitchen Organic Unsweetened. This is the cleanest real tomato option you can buy off a shelf, and it's the brand that proves the category's whole sweetener game is a choice, not a necessity. The ingredient list is organic tomato concentrate, balsamic and distilled vinegar, sea salt, onion powder, garlic powder, spices, and zero added sugar. None. It gets a faint natural sweetness from the balsamic and the tomato itself, which is how ketchup tasted before the corn subsidy era. It's non-GMO project verified, Whole30 approved, and certified paleo and keto. And crucially, you can find it at mainstream retailers now. Walmart, Kroger, and Target all stock it, not just specialty stores. It runs higher, around $4 to $6, but you're buying actual tomato instead of sweetened water. The standout fact. It's the rare bottle where if you ran that white plate weeping test from earlier, it barely separates at all, because there's enough tomato in it to hold itself together without a powder. Sir Kensington's Classic. If unsweetened is too austere for your family and you want something that tastes like the ketchup you grew up with, but made honestly, this is it. Made from whole tomatoes and tomato paste. Fair trade organic cane sugar. A single sweetener. No corn syrup, no second syrup hiding in the list. Water, onions, vinegar, and spices. It's non-GMO project verified and uses less sugar and salt than the conventional leaders. You'll find it at Target, many Kroger's, and Whole Foods for around $5. The standout fact, it nails the classic flavor profile that Heinz drilled into your palate, but it does it with the British-style single sugar recipe, meaning Sir Kensington's gives every American the EU version of ketchup that Heinz reserves for shoppers across the ocean. Simply Heinz and Heinz Simply Tomato. Here's the proof that the worst offenders know exactly how to make real food. Heinz, the same company behind the double syrup No. 3 bottle, sells Simply Heinz and Simply Tomato. Made with cane sugar, no high fructose corn syrup, no corn syrup, tomato concentrate, distilled vinegar, cane sugar, salt, onion powder, spice, natural flavoring. It's the American recipe finally written the honest way, and it sits on the same shelf as the regular red bottle at Walmart, Kroger, and Target, usually for only $1 or so more. The standout fact, it's nearly the exact recipe Heinz uses in Britain. The clean version was never beyond them. It was just upsold to you as a separate product. While the corn syrup bottle kept the prime shelf space, the budget winner, all these organic and store-brand organics. And here's the pattern that should reframe your whole shopping trip. The cleanest swap is often the cheapest one. Aldi's organic ketchup and plain organic store-brand bottles at chains like that frequently run the simple 4-ingredient recipe. Organic tomatoes, sugar, vinegar, salt, no corn syrup for less than a premium bottle of Heinz, sometimes under $2. Real food does not require a premium price tag. The discount grocer quietly beats the famous brands on the only metric that matters: what's actually in the bottle, and charges you less for the privilege. The big lesson of the good list is the same one that ends every honest investigation. The small producers and the discount stores are out honesting the household names, and they're doing it for less money. The pattern across all 8 is the same. The more famous the bottle and the brighter its halo, the more likely the tomato got swapped for sweetened water you paid a premium to drink. Every time you flip a bottle and choose the real thing over the fake, you're sending a message that the label-reading shopper is the one who can't be fooled anymore. So hit the like button if this changed how you'll shop. Drop a comment telling me which everyday product I should investigate next. Mustard, mayo, name it. And subscribe so you're there when I open the next bottle. Until next time, read your labels, count the syrups, and protect your plate.